Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Ethos Online. Again, this is a space where we can be, belong, and become the very best version of ourselves. So today we actually start a new series, and this is going to be a very short one. But as Leo and I were just talking a little bit ago, this is the first time in 2.5 years that we have done something a little different. We've shifted gear. We finished the book of Genesis. And so, if you want to do a deep study, if this is the first time you're joining us, we did a 2.5 year study over the book of Genesis, and that is in our playlist. Please go check it out if you haven't. It was an incredible experience to really take a book seriously. And so that's there. And today it's Christmas time. I'm wearing my Christmas sweater, my ugly Christmas sweater. We're celebrating the Christmas this month. And so we're going to do two series, or I should say, two teachings over Christmas. And then we're going to delve into the new year, kind of shift gears a little bit, shift how we do this, how it looks. So we're going to do some pretty hard work for the next couple weeks, trying to figure out how to traverse in the new year. But for today, I just want to say welcome. Whether you are in Nebraska, Florida, Idaho, California, wherever you're joining us, I just want to say welcome. And I hope this Christmas, this new year, is a beautiful season for you. People are beginning to put up the lights. You're seeing Christmas trees everywhere. It's just a really festive time. My kids had their first snow day Monday. So, good things, fun Christmas time, right? The season is here. And so we thought it would be fun again to discuss this theme of Christmas, this idea of hope in the story of the birth narrative. Now, I grew up with this story like many of you, and I often kind of get wrapped up with the nativity scene and mixed with these gifts and elves and Santa and all of that. It all becomes kind of this weird smorgasbord of J.C. Penney meets Jesus as a baby meets Santa Claus. It's a very odd season, right? But it's also a very beautiful one. People are very excited. It's the time of giving. It's beautiful. But as far as biblical ideas, as far as how the Jews viewed this, you might be surprised at some of the things that we have kind of missed as a Christian nation, right? When I say Christian nation, I say that tongue in cheek, but as a tradition that has been kind of taken by Roman Catholicism and kind of moved into this idea of Christianity today. How we view it today is very different for how most Jewish people would view it. And so I want to take you through today just one side of an interesting perspective on the birth narrative. And if you were Jewish, how this would be kind of observed for you and where the real beauty would lie. So, reminder, in the book of Genesis, we talk about how it was not a literal historical telling, right? There are many things that happen, maybe some things metaphor, but the majority of this book is all written there in Torah, Genesis, to share the values, right, of the people because they're in the middle of captivity, right? Babylonian captivity. So they're holding on to what it means to be Jewish. They're choosing not to assimilate. And in the middle of all of this brokenness, in the middle of captivity, they're saying, look, here's our hope. Right? There is hope around the corner. There's new life. We have to just make it through captivity. Find a way to live kingdom reality in the middle of Babylon. And so it's not a surprise that in the first century, 1 AD up till well past 70 AD, you have the Jewish community. They're in the same position, right? They have suffered under Egypt, under Babylon, under Assyria, under Greece, right? And now they are under the Romans. And so in 70 AD, we forget this. In 70 AD, what happens is their city, Jerusalem, is stormed, right? They took back Jerusalem for about a 2-year period and kind of held it siege. And then the Romans came in and they literally wiped out everyone in the city. There are verses where the wisdom voices say, if you weren't able to run to the hills, you watched as family and friends and community were just slaughtered on the streets. And so for the Jewish nation in 70 AD, They were asking this after experiencing a terrible tragedy. They were saying, where is our hope? Right? We believe still that the kingdom come reality is still for us. We believe that freedom, we can still experience freedom like our ancestors did. And so now they were looking for a new narrative. They were looking for a messianic archetype story. And so Torah, again, supplied the Jewish nation with many messianic figures. And so Rome, in the middle of Roman captivity, they need a new messianic figure, right? They need a new story. Because when in the first century, right in the beginning there, and even under Greco, in the beginning of Greece siege, when they go and defile the temple, the story they were reading was the story of Daniel. It was the most popular story being read then. And so the popular stories being written and shared were actually the stories in 70 AD of Jesus, who was living during that first 20 years of that first century. Really interesting. And so I have this picture here of this guy who's kind of looking back as he's writing. And what most people don't understand about the New Testament, specifically Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the four Gospels, is they forget that these individuals, they're Jewish people, and they're in the temple writing these stories, right? They're literally looking back at their shared experience, and they're asking themselves, how do we tell a story that's going to bring hope and this idea of redemption for our people? How do we share the story? What story do we share? And so what they do is they center it around Yeshua, a Messiah figure, right? The Messiah. And so his name Yeshua, Joshua. This is this is in the Hebrew, right? The Romans call him Jesus, right? The Jewish people, they would have said Joshua, Yeshua, right? And so if you were a Jew and you're reading this story, and you read about Yeshua, who it's a reminder of Joshua, who takes his people over the river, right, into the promised land. When you hear first this story that the birth of a new Jeshua has just happened, you're immediately thinking, whoa, right? A new birth experience. This figure is going to take us out of slavery and into this kingdom come reality. The fulfillment of Abraham will happen for our people too, through this person of Jesus. And so this is the idea here. The writers, they're actually looking back, and they're saying all throughout the Gospels, you will see references to Moses, 40 days versus 40 years. You'll see references to David, all of these different things, because they're looking back and they're making references that are going to connect Jesus to Moses, to Joshua, to David, to Noah, all these different figures. They are writing looking back. And that's super important when you're reading the Gospels, specifically the nativity scene. And so with the nativity scene, again, the idea here is they want to offer people hope, right? Their temple has been destroyed, and they're saying, where do we find hope, right? Is our nation completely gone now, right? We saw children. We saw some of our grandparents. We saw young men and women murdered on the streets. Is our tradition gone? And the answer starts with the nativity scene, according to Matthew and Luke. It starts with a new birth and a new messianic archetype, because we've already had Daniel. We've already had Joseph, right? We've already had Moses. We've had Elijah. What is the next messenger of hope that's going to lead our people across the river, right? Across the river Jordan into the promised land. What is that going to look like? And so they look back, and they begin with the nativity scene. Now, the nativity scene is actually filled with a lot of Old Testament references. When they are writing the story, they're actually taking images, they're taking stories from the Old Testament, and they're putting these stories into the New. So let me prove this to you. If you're looking at Isaiah 60, which is a lot of what the nativity scene pulls from, you'll notice this. Nations will come to your light, Kings to the brightness of your rising. So first off, understand Isaiah here, he's not speaking about Jesus someday. So understand this. Isaiah is not looking forward. Isaiah is speaking of the nation of Israel. That's the actual context. We have this idea always that like, oh, this book is actually pointing toward Jesus. Well, no, the writers were looking back, right? For Isaiah, he's looking and he's pointing out in context. When you read the whole book of Isaiah 60, you'll understand it's all about Israel. And so within context, remember, Jewish people, they're essentially pointing out this is who represents Israel. And so that makes sense. So it's not a surprise that the birth of Jesus is going to be told with this idea that kings would bow down, people from afar would gather. The idea here, again, people from everywhere will gather to hear this new message, right? Just like they did for Israel when Isaiah is speaking about Israel, right? So he brings up Israel here. And where do they gather, right? Where are they going to gather? Well, if you're looking back, and you're trying to pull from Isaiah and Micah and other places, where would they gather if the new messianic archetype has come? The new leader who's going to lead Israel into the new promised land. Where are they going to gather? Well, the answer for them was, well, Bethlehem, right? Micah 5:2, read this along with me. But as for you, Bethlehem, Ephrathah, too little to be among the clans of Judah, from you one will go forth for me to be ruler in Israel. His goings forth are from long ago, from the days of eternity. Bethlehem. So, like, of course, where King David and many others came from. So, Micah, of course, he's actually referring to David, within the context here. But we see why many people will understand, like, this can also be connected to Jesus, right? They're looking back and they're saying, hey, just like Micah is referring to David, this is how the story plays out for us today. We want you to know Jesus is the next messianic archetype, the one that's going to give us a message that's going to free our people in the middle of captivity. Really cool, right? They're looking back, they're borrowing images, and they're placing them there to show connection with Jesus and David and Moses and others. So again, this message is going to lead them out of captivity. Let me keep showing you more. Notice this, Isaiah 63. Nations will come to your light, kings to the brightness of your rising. A star, right? There's this brightness. Yeah, they're looking back, right? Was there an actual literal star that fell and people came from all over to see the star? Historians doubt it, right? But who knows? Maybe, maybe not. The point is, was it literal or not? That's not the point at all. 70 AD, the nation of Israel, the Jews in Jerusalem have lost everything. They're not asking, did the story happen or not? They're saying, what is the message that's going to free us in the middle of captivity and brokenness and so much death? What message does Torah, does our Jewish tradition have to offer us that's going to get us through this brokenness? And so, again, not a big surprise. The Star of Judah, right? The Star of David shows up in their story, the borrowed story, right? So, of course, the Star of David, the new birth, the new star, the new connection, it's right there, right? New birth is just around the corner. It starts here and it looks just like David, right? In Bethlehem, Star of David, all these connections. If you were a Jewish person, you would be probably smiling right now because you're picking up, oh, it's like this and it's like this. And you're remembering the stories of Torah and they're bringing you hope, right? And you're forming this all in the person of Jesus. Let me keep going. Notice this, verse 4 of Isaiah 60. Lift up your eyes round about and see. They all gather together. They come to you. Your sons will come from afar. Your daughters will be carried in your arms. So again, remember, this is about Israel, right? Nations will come to you. They'll want to see what Israel's doing because you become a great nation. But remember, they're looking back. They're borrowing images to place on Jesus to show Jesus' message is the new message, right? So again, all these people are going to gather. Wise men come from afar. All this is all placed there again because you were a Jewish person understanding the connections. So, of course, nations will come just to see this little child, right? To see the new birth experience. Let me give you more. Notice this 5 through 6. Where are the camels? Where's the gold? Where's the frankincense? Is that a new idea? Again, all of it borrowed from the old to place on the new. Let me prove again this. Where did the camels come from? The gold, the frankincense? If you just read more of Isaiah 65 through 6, you'll see it. Notice this. The wealth of the nations will come to you. The multitude of camels will cover you. The young camels of Midian and Ephah. All those from Sheba will come. They will bring gold and frankincense and will bear good news of the praises of the Lord. Yep. There it is, right? Next verse, there's the gifts. Even the gifts are, again, the borrowed idea. Jesus is the next messenger, right, of hope in the middle of brokenness. Some of you are asking now, hey, what about the myrrh? Right? Frankincense, gold, where's the myrrh? You can even find the myrrh. This is how funny it is. They're borrowing ideas from the old, placing it on the new. If you looked at 1 Kings 10, 1 through 13, you find the story of Sheba when she visits Solomon, right? She visits him. And in this story, she brings all of these spices and all of this stuff. And myrrh, of course, along with frankincense, gold, and other things, is part of the deal. She is a foreigner who comes to Solomon and gives him these gifts to say, what a wonderful nation you've become. Right? What all of these glories God has blessed you with, I come here to honor you, which is essentially what the wise men do in the story of Jesus. We have come to honor the new birth, the new experience, the new reality that you, as the Messiah, right, the messianic archetype, are going to usher in. So again, anyone reading this that was Jewish, which was, it was Jewish, there were Jewish writers, they were understanding this. In the middle of our brokenness, with so much death, so much pain, so much brokenness, in the middle of all of this, there is a new birth experience that's happened, and it's going to usher in a new reality. So just wait. Hope is just around the corner, right? Wait for it. It's coming. Yeah. Notice Isaiah 7:14. I like this one. Therefore, the Lord of his own shall give you a sign. Behold, a young woman is with child, and she shall bear a son, and she shall call his name Emmanuel. This sounds very familiar, doesn't it? Yeah. It's almost borrowed word for word in the New Testament when talking about the birth narrative. It's often quoted, but here's the thing. What is the context of Isaiah 7 here? Is it referring to Jesus in thousands of years later? Or is there a specific context? If you read the specific context, you'll understand it's not actually pointing forward. Yeah, there's something important here. And here's another thing. It's not referring to a virgin. The word here, the Hebrew word here, it just means young girl with child. That's what this meant, with child. So the word virgin in the Hebrew, not a word you would find here related to this verse in Isaiah. It means with child, which is interesting. The context, the writers, of course, they're attempting to make the connection with the Old Testament. The new messianic person, the narrative, is going to inspire them in the middle of captivity. And so they borrow this, right? Because again, this young child, this child of Jesse, is going to bring about shifts and changes for Israel, right? David will do powerfully good things for his nation. And again, so they're connecting Jesus to David, right? David's going to do powerful things for his people. Jesus is going to do powerful things for his people. This message he will share in the middle of Roman captivity. Really cool. Notice this, Luke versus Solomon. Same thing, right? This will be a sign for you. You will find a baby wrapped in clothes and lying in a manger. Notice Solomon 7:4-5. It was nursed with care in swaddling clothes, for no king has had a different beginning of existence. Again, it's almost as if Luke is taking Solomon and he's rephrasing it in his own words. And he's saying Jesus is just like, yeah. You can see the connections over and over again. Jesus will be the next king. This king, of course, is going to be a little different. So again, borrowed ideas about how do we shift and shape the new story, right? Again, because we had Daniel, we had Moses, we had Joseph, we had these different messianic archetypes. Who is the next one? What is the new message that's going to lead us out of captivity? Well, Jesus' message will, right? So we get to this nativity scene, right? Jesus' story is written by people using the Old Testament. They have it open. And so Israel during this era, again, they need their messianic archetype to be a little different. He can't be a warring archetype. He can't be a David who goes out and destroys nations with might. Because again, they're in the middle of captivity, right? They tried to use violence in 68 and 69 AD, and that went horrifically wrong for them, right? It caused them to have Israel completely destroyed. And so the question for them is, if we're not going to have a warrior king, if we're not going to have a warrior Messiah come and shift things and murder and just wipe out this conquering nation that's taken us captive, what's it going to look like? And so for Israel, they start with this really calm, serene birth, right? It's a peaceful birth. It's in the middle while there's violence happening all around. It's this peaceful, humble birth. And so this leader, rather than being a proud warrior king, it's going to be a different kind of king. It's going to be a Messiah that's going to use humility, a suffering servant, right? It's going to be very different. I wanted to show you this. The phrase here, the Son of God, in the middle of Roman captivity, understand this. This phrase would have been used often. If a Roman had picked up this birth narrative, they would have been disgusted by it. They would have said, "What? A king coming from humble beginnings like this? Ugh." Right? They would have been shocked. It would have been a bit appalling. Because here's the thing, the word Son of God, this title, this was a really common one associated with Roman emperors, sometimes even like Roman officials who had high positions. So understand this about this phrase, Son of God, that we just read a few minutes ago. Son of God was used first by Augustus Caesar. This phrase is used by Julius Caesar, 40 AD. It's a phrase that they used in order to show power. We are the Son of God. It was almost as if they're saying like a demigod, right? I've been chosen by the gods to lead you into a greater kingdom. And so Son of God was used over and over again. It was about royalty. And so you have this picture, this image of the statue of Augustus here. And then you have Jesus. And I want you to understand, Augustus, Julius Caesar, all these different emperors, they come from a very proud tradition of like military might, royalty. They would have been born with like inside of a palace. They would have had all these different people taking care of them. They would have been given the very best of everything. That's the kind of king, the Son of God, Rome was accustomed to. However, we have a different individual, a different figure show up in Rome who also has this phrase now, Son of God, right? And Son of God, born not in a palace, but a manger. Son of God, not born with prestige and royalty, but born in the middle of chaos, born in the middle of brokenness, born in a cave with animals. Again, for the Romans, this would have been completely, it would have caused them to say, this is a crazy story. I don't want to read anymore. The two would have been very, very opposite. How could Jesus, born in a manger, claim to be the Son of God? It would have been blasphemy for the Romans. So Beautiful, right? And so notice this. I love this when they discuss the shepherds and the birth here. Different historians and theologians. Notice this one. During the Roman era of captivity, because we have shepherds show up on the scene, right? Not royalty, not the kings from afar who were there to celebrate with the royal palace. Shepherds. Why would they incorporate shepherds, you might ask? Notice this. There's two reasons. One, during the Roman era of captivity, shepherds were considered the lowest of low for their nomadic, earthy lives of wandering. When walking into town, townspeople gave shepherds a wide berth because of their smell and low place in society. Fascinating, right? Shepherds are the ones that come and visit, according to the gospel writer, right? The other connection, of course, is David, the shepherd boy, right? Why? Well, think about again these two things. The total contrast here, right? The Roman way would have been very different, but the Jewish way is this very humble beginning, right? This idea, shepherds, they're the lowest of low, just like Israel is considered the lowest of low. And then notice this, what another theologian says. I really like this one. Shepherds are placed in the narrative. And again, notice this. They're placed there. That's how Jewish people would have understood any of these stories, right? They place their character, their people, their stories, their images, their messianic archetypes. They place them in certain places in the narrative for a purpose. So watch. Shepherds are placed in the narrative to remind the Jewish nation that Jesus represents them, the wandering nomadic nation. While they are lowly to Rome, they are sons of the Most High. That's really good, right? Shepherds, again, the ones who come to visit, they are the ones that are going to bring freedom out of Roman captivity. It's their way, their humble, earthy way, their nomadic way. It's their peaceful living and their peaceful existence that's going to cause them to find freedom in the end. You don't find freedom through the sword, right? You don't find freedom by responding to violence with more violence. The Jewish nation learned that the hard way, 68 and 69 AD. Right? And the story of Jesus is a reminder, no. We don't act like proud Romans, right? Who beat their shields and run into battle with their swords and conquer and conquer and conquer. We are humble, nomadic, earthy people who have learned to show peace and love even to our enemies. We have humble beginnings and we choose the way of peace. And when we do that, we find freedom everywhere we go. This is what they saw in the birth story. And again, so beautiful, right? The birth story is a message to the Jewish community in 70 AD that just experienced deep tragedy in the hands of Roman military. That new life is going to be ushered in not through military might, but through silent suffering. It will be found in enemy love. Jesus will embody all of this, giving them hope for a new kingdom come reality. I love there what Derek Flood says there. It's so beautiful, right? That's what they saw. The birth story reminds them that sometimes for Israel to flourish, right, in the middle of brokenness, you have to learn how to recycle hate with love, right? In the middle of injustice, recycle hate with love. And again, what an interesting shift. It's a beautiful story. And again, this is never talked about, right? When we're talking about Christmas stories and nativity scenes and Christmas trees, all this stuff, you never hear this. But I would argue there is a far deeper message here when you view it through the Jewish lens. Because again, this was written for the Jewish community. These stories at 70 AD, these were shared stories that were bringing that community hope in the middle of pain, in the middle of brokenness. If we can just get back to our earthy beginnings, if we can just get back to understanding we are a humble people that choose the way of peace, if we can be that people again, we will survive the Roman era, right? So good. We will find promised land. I wanted to share this story. I had a student. I teach, and I had a student at my school last year. They shared this really simple story with me because every year at Christmas time, I always ask the kids right before Christmas break. I say, "What are you gonna do? Right? What are you gonna do for Christmas? Tell me about your Christmas ideas. Are you gonna go travel? Are you gonna do this or that?" And I asked this one student. I said, "Hey, what are you doing?" And she kind of half smiled, half grimaced. And so I knew there was something there. And so I just said, "What does that mean? Right? What's going on? What are you going to do for Christmas?" And she said, "Well, my mom, she's been working two jobs. It's been really, really difficult. And we don't have a lot of money this year." She said, "Things have gotten tough to heat the house. We sometimes just open the oven and crank up the oven." She said, "Things are really, really tough this year." And she told me this. She said, "I know we don't have much to celebrate." And I tried to remember this as best I could when I quote her here. But she basically said this: "I know we don't have much to celebrate, but there's one thing I'm happy about." And she kind of got this funny smile on her face. She said, "My mom is free. My mom is free. For the first time in years, she has been clean and she's doing well. Whatever happens to our house, I'm pretty sure we're going to make it," she told me. She used words like, "I'm hopeful. It'll be a good Christmas." And I remember hearing that thinking, they're about to lose their house, right? They don't have any gifts. They're heating their house with an oven. And here I am complaining because I didn't get the kids enough gifts and this and that. And she has this moment where she has this ability to turn and say, "You know what? I'm so thankful because my mom has experienced freedom. My mom is clean." So beautiful. In the middle of brokenness, in the middle of the lowest of lows, are these incredible bright spots that can be really easily missed. She saw what others didn't, right? Um, some of us, we miss these moments, don't we? These situations where, again, a poor couple in a stinky manger with shepherds, brokenness, while others while others see an absolute tragedy, while others are looking down thinking, "Ugh," some people see through it and they see a new birth moment, right? They see a new start, a humble beginning, a new birth experience. And so when the Romans read the story, understand they were disgusted. When the Jews read the story, they were saying, "My mom is clean," right? New birth is around the corner. Good things are about to happen. Just hold on to hope. Hold on a little bit longer. The message of Jesus is actually going to shatter so many things, and it's going to create a new kingdom come reality. It's just around the corner. Read a little bit more, right? This Jesus, he brings in an absolute new kind of reality and will usher in something beautiful for our people. Just wait. It starts with a humble beginning, but it's going to end with something really beautiful. For me, when I think about Christmas as it approaches this year, I just want to challenge you to look at the beautiful things you have right now that are all around you, because I think we take for granted those so often. And so maybe consider this week and the next week what's really important to you, right? Think about what's worth celebrating. Take time. And I think if you do that, if you ask those questions, think about what's really happening just under the surface. What powerfully good things are taking place right now? I think if you do this, many of you, we're going to end up experiencing some of the best Christmases, the best Christmas experience we've ever had. because we've chosen to shift our Christmas understanding, right? Shift the way we view the story from something as silly as just giving gifts to one another. Um, Instead, we look at this story and it actually causes our hearts to stir and we become better people. I think the story has that potential to do that to us. And so, everyone watching this, I just want to say, I hope your Christmas season is awesome. And I hope that I gave you something at least a little different to consider as you are going through the experience here in December of Christmas and the nativity scene and the message of a little baby born in a manger. Everyone, I love you so much. If you have a moment, please go to ethos-church.org/donate. Again, we're a tax-deductible organization. We'd love for you to partner with us. I think what we have to share is really pretty beautiful. And we're going to do another message here this month over hope. And then we're going to kind of turn some gears, and kind of remodel a little bit of things in the new year. But everyone, please share these videos. I think this was a lot of fun today, just to kind of view this story in a little different perspective, one that I think has a lot more substance. Everyone, take care, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next week. Bye.